what we'll do is like this, for the few moments we've got left. On page 100, yesterday we were looking at the Kedusha, right? So let's just carry on, let's just work out what needs to be done over here. So we had a look at the first part of the Kedusha was Nakadesh, right, or Nagdishach, depending on what your what nusach, what you're using to daven with. And we got to this idea of a korazel zeviyama, that you should bow from side to side. If you do, good. If you don't, it's fine. Nothing's going to happen to you. And then we spoke about kadosh, kadosh, kadosh. Now, each kadosh is supposed to go up onto your tippy toes. Just a very beautiful idea over here. Rav Hirsch says that kadosh, 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 which of course, bless you, is a prophecy. It was given to Isaiah, and Rav Hirsch says that this prophecy is the most sublime prophecy ever given to mankind. Kadosh, 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 that the three different planes of our existence. There is the plane of time, there is the plane of people, and the plane of place. And each one has a dimension which is holy. So the dimension of time, of course, is Shabbat. You've got the Shabbat is the dimension of the week, which is intrinsically holy. That's one Kadosh. You've got place, so there's a place in the world which is intrinsically more holy than everywhere else, which is the land of Israel and Jerusalem and the temple, where the temple was built. That's another holy. And then amongst the nations of the world, you've got a nation which is intrinsically more holy than the others, which is the Jewish people. And Kadosh, 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 what we're doing is we're being taught this dimension of holiness. Whatever plane a person finds themselves in, they're always going to be able to tap into the spiritual dimensions. They'll always be able to tap into their relationship with God. So we go Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. We're going up on our tippy toes. We're being like angels, right? So, sort of drawing upwards towards Hashem. Now, in most congregations, what you'll find is that if you take a look at the way the Rabbi Scroll writes it, that's the way it is, which means that everybody says Kadosh, 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 and then the Chazan says L'umatam Baruch Yomeru. However, you will find sometimes communities or individuals inside of the community that say L'umatam Baruch Yomeru as well. It's okay. You don't have to take them out and string them up, capital punishment. It's okay, if they do it, they do it. It's not a problem. They're not doing anything wrong. It's just, I'm saying in most communities that's not what's done. In most communities, they just recite the bit where it says all over here. And then, Baruch Kavod Hashem Imkomo, everybody says that again. When you say Baruch, so again, go up onto your tippy toes. And the Chazan says, Uv Divrei Kodshecha Katuv Leimor. And then, for the last one, Yimloch Hashem Le'olam. So that same thing, everybody says it together. And then, at the end, the Chazan concludes with the bracha. L'dor v'ador nagid godlecho, or l'netzach netzachim, and then at the end he says Baruch atah Hashem, Akel HaKadosh, God, the holy God, and everybody should answer Amen to the bracha. So yesterday somebody asked a question, and I forgot to add one detail. Right? Somebody asked what happens if you haven't finished the Amidah and the Kedusha begins. What are you supposed to do? So I told you if you're past the final blessing, then you should wait, and the Chazan should say Nekadesh for you, and then you should say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh together with the community, and Baruch Kavod together with the community, and not say Yimloch, but when the Chazan says the bracha of Baruch Atah Hashem Akel HaKadosh, at that point you should answer Amen, even though you're in the final paragraph of the Amidah. If he begins the Kedusha before you've reached the end of the Amidah, before you've reached that final paragraph, so then you should get to the end of your bracha and stop and listen to everything that's being said, but don't answer to it.
But you get to the end of the bracha. You don't stop mid-bracha.
The emphasis is like this. If you can swing it, get to the end of the brachas. Most of the brachas are relatively short. Some of the brachas are quite long. So if you start Alat Tzadikim and all of a sudden they start the Kedusha, that's a great big long blessing over there. Right? So what you should do is at least get to the end of a sentence, right? Don't sort of like, Alat, and then just hang there until the end of the Kedusha, but rather, get to the end of a sentence at the very least. That's it. The Kedusha, of course, is it's very focal. It's a very important part of the Tefillah. The Kedusha that's recited on Shabbos is longer, and on Yom Tov is longer, right? And we said in Musaf as well, it's even longer still. The one in Musaf, just something you should be aware of. Did you want to answer?
You mentioned before about standing up. standing up for the Amida. From what I always do it. I stand up from when it begins the Shemoneh Esrei, the
Yeah.
Shliach Tzibur, and finally when it's Huel HaKadosh, then I sit down.
Yeah. So it's true. Many people do that as well, which means that to stand up for the beginning of the Amida, and then when you get to the end of the Kedusha, to sit down. I'm telling you, whatever you do, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, the Kedusha
right?
at the end of that bracha.
Yeah, I don't. Either way, really either way. Akel HaKadosh. It's true that the bracha Akel HaKadosh is the end of the Kedusha, right? But the emes is that Akel HaKadosh is taking the place of this bracha over here, which also ends with Akel HaKadosh, but the Chazan doesn't repeat that. It's being said instead of it. So really, whatever you do in this context, whatever you do, it's going to be okay. If you sit, you sit. If you stand, you stand. It's going to be absolutely fine.
Just to clarify, the Amida and the Shemoneh Esrei are the same thing.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. The Amida means stand, right? So it's a standing prayer.
Right.
The Shemoneh Esrei means 18.
Right.
Because originally there were 18. Are we Jewish or what? We call it the Shemoneh Esrei because there are 19 blessings in it.
Right.
Go figure, right? Shemoneh Esrei means 18,
183.
and we call it 19. And if there would have been 19 brachas to begin with, we would have called it the 20 or something. Whatever. It's like
right.
we're just being Jewish. That's all it is. There were originally 18 blessings in the Amida, and one blessing was added in. Mitzvah Hashem, we'll get to it next week in Mitzvah Hashem. That one blessing was added in, and it became the 19. There are 19 blessings in total. However, it's still called the Shemoneh Esrei. Right? So when we talk about the Amida, talk about the Shemoneh Esrei, or even if you talk about Tefillas Lachash, it's all the same thing. Right? You know what? Just one last idea over here, just to fill up a few minutes and keep everybody happy. Right? You asked about the idea of if you think God's right, you think God's name or you think prayers or something. Is that yes or no? Right? It's interesting that the Amida
is thinking the same as saying it.
So in the Amida, in the Gemara, is called Avoda Shebalev, which means the worship of your heart. Right? Avodah Shebalev. It's interesting that it sounds like what's in your heart. It's enough that what's in your heart is, you don't actually have to say anything. Right? The Maharal from Prague lived about 400 years ago, so he has a very interesting insight over here. He says, if the Amida is called Avodah Shebalev, so why then do we have to say the words? Why can't we just let God have a quick peek in and done, finish? We'll go stand in the corner for 30 seconds and we're done. So he explains that in order, all the mitzvot have a physical dimension to them. Because our neshama, because the soul is inside of the physical body has to be a partner, has to feel a part of what's going on. So the Maharal explains that when we come to pray, it's true. In order to satisfy the soul, we could just let God have a look inside of our hearts and we're done. Avodah Shebalev, finished, right? But in order for our bodies to be a part of the experience, in order for ourselves to feel like we're gaining something from it as well, says the Maharal, we have to say the words. It's an interesting thing, right? I'm not sure there's a definitive answer to what you're asking, because what the Maharal seems to be suggesting is that in spiritual terms, thinking words of prayer is maybe you are fulfilling something. In practical terms, you're not. Right? Because your body has to be involved in the process as well in order for you to be able to feel some kind of a benefit of what's going on. Yeah.
When you're praying by yourself, is it okay to say the Amida out loud?
Yeah, for sure. Say it in whatever way is going to make it meaningful to you.
What if you're praying in a room with other people that aren't praying without a minyan? So you're praying by yourself, and your mom is watching TV on the couch without volume.
You mean your mother is reading a Musa book,
Exactly.
right?
She's reciting Tehillim.
Yeah, for sure, right? No,
She's watching a live broadcast
of a shir, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Here, of this shir over here, for sure. And she's wondering why on earth did she send her son off to learn this stuff when he could have just stayed home. I would say like this, even if you pray better, if you're davening out loud, right? But it's going to bother somebody who's in the room, then you should daven in a
Right.
quieter way. The halacha of v'ahavta l'recha kamocha, which is loving your fellow man like yourself, is a dioraisa. That comes from the Torah. Which means when it comes to watching, it's better for my prayer that I pray out loud, but it's going to bother the person who's next to me. So obviously it's better for me to not pray with quite as much kavana and fulfill the mitzvah of loving your fellow man like yourself than the other way around. Right? There are all different kinds of dimensions inside of mitzvahs. One of them is called a hidor mitzvah. You've got a mitzvah and you can beautify the mitzvah, but don't beautify the mitzvah at the expense of somebody else. Right? That's not good. That's not a good idea. Good. Okay, Rabbi, so we're going to stop over here.